Well, we're picking up here with Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj's instructions on the mind in section 7 of the book I Am That. And he was just teaching us last week about Tattva, Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas, being the three forces of the universe that kind of play in our mind. Rajas and Tamas keep us bound, and Sattva is kind of a harmony. It's a balance between Rajas and Tamas, really. And that harmony or that balance or that light that leads us toward realization, toward freedom, is what needs to predominate. And it predominates, the Maharaj was saying last week, just simply by us remembering to be the witness, by us remembering to be fully present. And in that observation of being in the present, once you've been practicing on that, once you're managing to do it most of the time, you start moving into subtler regions of your inner world. You start hearing things and understanding things at a more subtle level, because you're actually starting to move in there. You're starting actually to find out what you are and how this is all working and functioning, and what the reality is as opposed to what it seems like it is. And so by that observation, these things naturally come into balance, which is grace. But in Jnana, that grace is emulating from you, from the true self within. And that grace of growth, that grace of learning, that grace of tenacity, of continuing on in the battle, all of those are the hand of the quiet God in Jnana, God as the whole. So we're stepping into the mind this morning, and the questioner says, there are very interesting books written by apparently very competent people in which the illusoriness of the world is denied, though not its transitoriness. According to them, there exists a hierarchy of beings from the lowest to the highest. On each level, the complexity of the organism enables and reflects the depth, breadth, and intensity of consciousness without any visible or knowable culmination. One law supreme rules throughout: evolution of forms for the growth and enrichment of consciousness and the manifestation of its infinite potentialities. All right. This is one of those questions that's not a question. Okay, so Maharaj responds anyway. Well, this may or may not be so. Yeah. Which is a wonderful response, because how in spiritual life in particular, one of men and women's favorite things to do is to stand up and say something about something they, in all actuality, we don't know anything about. Right? It's the dilemma of well, it's definitely my daily dilemma. Thinking about these things, and Mother hasn't really gotten into a deep conversation with me about any of these things, so I kind of just borrow and run at this point. Kind of slip into her kitchen, grab a recipe book, and come out and teach a few recipes, and so that's where we're at. So it's really good to be honest with yourself about what you know and what you don't know. We make a lot of assumptions in spiritual life, and we get attached to our assumptions and our path and our teachers and all of those things. And then we become part of the whirl, the WHIRL, the big whirl of this chaotic world of change. And so Maharaj is cutting it off right here. He's saying he's not denying it. It's what he's really saying here is it doesn't really matter. it's illusory. We're interested in looking through it, not looking at it. Right? We're not interested in becoming spiritual biologists, where we know all the science of the illusion. We're in this to transcend. We're in this to know the beloved, to stop the nonsense and get down to it. So this may or may not be so. Even if it is, It is only so from the mind's point of view. But in fact, the entire universe, the Mahadakash, exists only in consciousness, Chidakash, while I have my stand in the Absolute, the Paramakash. In pure being, consciousness arises. In consciousness, the world appears and disappears. All there is me. All there is mine. Before all beginnings, after all endings, I am. All has been, all has its being in me, in the I am that shines in every living being. Even not being is unthinkable without me. Whatever happens, I must be there to witness it. So this is actually a very cool perspective here, because it allows for thousands of ideologies, philosophies, approaches, paths, if you will. It just allows for all of us to have our own toolkit working in this moment to come to our realization. And what tools we're using, whether it's a bhakti tool or a jnana tool or a humanist tool or a stoic tool or a Christian tool, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The overarching problem is the same regardless of what tool set you use to solve the problem, right? And so we don't have to worry about the particulars of it. We're going under all of that. We're not trying to go through it all. We're trying to get to the root of it and cut off the water supply so that the wrong ideas stop reproducing and manifesting. So it's your isness that we're after. It's your realization of the nature of your isness, of your being. Yes, we know the words, right? Such Chitananda. We know the words. That's fine. Now you have to understand what they mean. And for that, we go deep. We have to go subtle within, to say that your love, at your core, there's some beautiful, beautiful axioms that grow out of that, out of theorems that grow out of that, ideas that grow out of that, confidence that grows out of that. I was sitting alone in my bed the other night, woke up in the middle of the night, a little bit of a depressive feeling in my mind, a little bit of melancholy. And, just sitting there and feeling all of that, I had this thought to myself and trying to deal with that. I thought, the nature of the universe is love. And I just kept saying that to myself. The nature of this universe is love. And this wonderful sense of well-being comes from that idea that you're being held in the Divine Mother's hands. And what does that actually mean? This universe is coming together at this moment to support you. The whole universe is coming together at this moment to deliver to you the sum total of your desires, and to move you forward toward your ideal of knowing the truth, knowing the beloved. And when you start to see that this world is not just mechanical, that this world is not just chance in a box, that this world is actually a manifestation of something utterly harmless, something utterly caring, something utterly invested and deep in you. There's a lot of things, a lot of positive things grow out of that. And so this notion of becoming the witness is to know the nature of love, because it's love in action that you're watching. And that's what takes the detachment, because there's some actions of love that you simply cannot see from the perspective of a body or a mind. There's manifestations of love that are much bigger and much more complex and much more nuanced than what the body or mind can see. Because there are actions of love that can hurt. There are actions of love that can cause pain. And so, okay. And so we should be aware of that and understand that we're growing into a fullness. We're growing into a beauty. Why do you deny being? Why do you deny being to the world? Right? Why is he saying that the world does not exist in and of itself? Why aren't you dual? Is really what he's asking. Maharaj, I do not negate the world. I see it as appearing in consciousness, which is the totality of the known in the immensity of the unknown. What begins and ends is mere appearance. The world can be said to appear, but not to be. The appearance may last very long on some scale of time and be very short on another, but ultimately it comes out to the same. Whatever is time-bound is momentary, and it has no reality. Right? So it's not a philosophy. It's not a philosophical conjecture to say that the world is unreal. It's like pick anything up and we see. Again, I'm bringing up my old tired examples. This potting soil scenario. It's like nothing is what it is. Everything in your room right now, give it 50 years, give it 100 years, every single thing in your room is going to change into a different form. It's going to stop being what it looks like. It's going to stop being what you purchased, including you. We hang around long enough, you're just going to be a little conical pile of dirt in the middle of the floor. And somebody will run in, Auntie, you've changed. Yes, indeed I have. Finally, the melting one. So this is the nature of things. And so understand the world is not real in that sense. It is something. There is a screen behind it, but that screen behind it is reflecting the light that comes from you, from the self, the grand self within. That light of consciousness is what illumines the world for us. The light of consciousness, the light of love. Questioner, well, surely you see the actual world as it surrounds you. You seem to behave quite normally. Maharaj, no, that's how it appears to you. What, in your case, occupies the entire field of consciousness is a mere speck in mine. The world lasts, but only for a moment. It is your memory that makes you think that the world continues. Myself, I do not live by memory. I see the world as it is, a momentary appearance in consciousness. So this is being in the present. He's pointing to your memory that makes it seem like it drags out for a long time behind you. And if you live according to that, which is what we do, because our ego is created from memory alone, this sense of separate self is conjured out of memory alone. And so to be enlightened, you've done away with that memory. You've done away with your story. You've done away with the story that tells you what you are, that you are this person doing these things in this thing called life. And you set that aside and you just take the moment as it is. You see it as it is. And if you take the moment like that, you see divinity everywhere. You see this Satchitananda everywhere, this light, this love, this wisdom, this profundity, constantly new, never repeating, just utterly different in every moment, from moment to moment. And you just see there's nothing, the changes are not the thing. They're all symbols pointing to the thing, pointing to the source of light that is allowing them to be witnessed. Myself, I don't live by memory. I see the world as it is, a momentary appearance in consciousness. Questioner, in your consciousness? Maharaj, all idea of me and mine, even of I am, is in consciousness. Questioner, is then your absolute being, your paramakash, unconsciousness? Is then your absolute being unconsciousness? Maharaj, the idea of unconsciousness exists in consciousness only. Questioner, then how do you know you're in that supreme state? Because I am in it. It is the only natural state. Can you describe it? Only by negation, as uncaused, independent, unrelated, undivided, uncomposed, unshakable, unquestionable, unreachable by effort. Every position, every positive definition is from memory and therefore inapplicable. And yet my state is supremely actual and therefore possible, realizable, attainable. Oh, this is marvelous. Every one of these words we should go through here. So this reality can only be seen or can only be known through negation. Why? Because if you put it in front of you, that which you are looking for is behind you, in a sense. So you can't put it in front of you. You can't objectify the self, because the self is behind everything, and it always will be. So you can't go looking for the self. And that's a big key, and one that most of us know, but oddly enough, it's probably still a large part of the reason that we're not seeing God, is because we're still looking for her. And this is a problem. It's, we need to come to the point of not looking anymore and come to the point of recognizing or seeing God everywhere, that there is nothing else in this room but God. There's nothing else around you right now but God. The pillows holding sweet Rena's head up so comfortably is her divine mother. So God is everywhere present and always perfect. And so this negation, uncaused. All right, beautiful, uncaused. What does that mean? It means uncaused. So this reality is eternal. That's what uncaused means. Its isness has no reason, no beginning, no end. Nothing created it. It didn't happen because of a condition. So it's uncaused and independent. It's one without a second. There's nothing working on it. There's nothing imposing anything on it. It is the isness of isness, undivided. So, and it's unrelated, which means it's not a relative existence. That's how we know it is the one real thing. You see, in the relative world, everything depends on something else for its definition. You're not a man unless there's a woman. You're not a woman unless there's a man. You're not big unless there's something small. All of your attributes cannot exist independently because you're part of the illusion. The only thing that exists independently is the absolute unchanging, the absolute immortal, unchanging self, that God. And that unchangeability we talk about is very necessary, because without it, the material world, the relative world, can't exist, because there is no original oneness from which everything else is measured. You see, if everything in the universe only has its value through a relation to something else, if everything's relative, then nothing has value and it would collapse into itself. There could be no even pretend existence to it. And so it requires Satchitananda at the middle. It requires the unchanging absolute as the first tent post upon which all the rest of the relative world can be strung. Everything ultimately relates to that one without a second. And interestingly enough, you can see that mirrored even in your world, even in your little universe that you've created. Does not everything in your universe right now have a string that's tied directly to you, that's relative to you? Where are the stars? Well, they're up there. Where's the kitchen? It's over there. Where are you? I'm right here. So everything in your universe requires you as the tent post in the middle for its existence, because every string of everything about everything in the relative world comes back to you and is tied to you. You are the observer. That's why he was saying up here above those, he says, I see the world as it is, a momentary appearance in consciousness. He doesn't live by the past. And so it's because of his I am, because of your I am, because of the I am, that all of this exists. So uncaused, independent, unrelated, undivided, meaning that there is no inside and outside. First of all, the whole world is within you. Alameda is within me. I am not within Alameda. So that's the first thing that means. Undivided. It can't be two. God can't be separate from you. And that means that God never was separate from you. That means that there never was a problem between you and the divine. It's you are the problem. It's not that you have a problem, it's that you are the problem. And the problem is that you insist on your existence. You insist on being separate from the rest, from the whole. You still think that you are separate from the whole and that you act on the whole. But here we see that the whole is undivided and unrelated and independent and uncaused. What effect are you going to give to the uncaused, right? What influence will you be to the independent? What part will you be to the unrelated? And where are you in the undivided? You see this great big tray of philosophical goop we have to work through here. It's going to undo you to understand these things. It's going to remove your very sense of egoism and give you a freedom that you haven't even yet begun to imagine. So undivided, uncomposed, that means it's eternal, because Vivekananda says, anything composed must decompose. That which is the ultimate, which has no composition. It's not put together from parts. It's not a chemical reaction. It's isness itself. It's unshakable. Unshakable. It is the steadiness of life. It is the illusion of the I. The I, the self that you have been your whole life long, even though your body and mind are constantly changing. This reality is the unshakable sense of me that you misunderstood. Unquestionable. It's obvious. It doesn't mean that you're not allowed to question it. It's that it's obvious. Your questions only come from your ignorance, not the nature of the universe. It comes from your inability to see. The fact that you're trying to stuff this huge infinite universe through 5 tiny little openings in your body to understand the infinite by being finite, really it's just saying you're stupid, but it's saying it in a very nice way. So we've got to let go of this notion that we're going to grab this through our senses and form it into a tower in the mind that represents the truth. It's not going to happen. So give up, literally give up trying to build a castle of God in the mind and abandon the mind altogether. Go absolutely just to the love that already exists, to the perfection that already exists. Go directly to it, short circuit all of this nonsense, and just go straight to the fact that God is, and it's within you, and it is that which is powering all that you think is being done and said and heard and seen and tasted, touched, and smelled. That in fact, underneath all of that is a singularity, an unmoving truth, and you know it. You sense it. You can feel it even right now. But we don't pay attention to it because we're fascinated by the changing, fascinated by the movement. So let the movement and the changing point at the unchanging. Allow you to become aware of that which you've forgotten through the things that you are fascinated by looking through them, understanding that they're pointing, understanding that they're symbols, understanding that they are reflections of this beautiful truth that is you. Uncomposed, unshakable, unquestionable, unreachable by effort. Okay, here we got a pointer to grace. Unreachable by effort. Okay, you can say grace. That would be some Gyanis would raise an eyebrow at me, but none that haven't already, so it's not a problem. But unreachable by effort. Unreachable by effort also means that there's no effort involved. There's nothing to be done. right? In your dream, in your dream, you're putting a great deal of effort into whatever you're going through in the dream. If you're running from a bunch of gangsters, or if you're trying to build a castle, or if you're trying to fly, or whatever you're doing in your dream, you're putting out a great deal of effort. But are you? No, there's no effort at all, even though it appears that way, feels that way, seems that way. Again, we just remind you, when you wake up in the morning, that big castle you spent the whole night working on in your dream isn't in the backyard. It doesn't exist. So all of your imagined effort was exactly that, an imagined effort, because that which is requires no effort, right? It already is within you. Now, if you can convince your ego that it requires no effort to realize God, that will be a huge step toward its undoing, because it creates this marvelous story that makes you very important. I have to realize God. That makes me very important. Your ego will then tell you, oh, well, now we're going to read this book, and we're going to read this book, and we're going to go visit this Swami, and we're going to go see this saint, and we're going to go visit this temple. And the ego will have you running into holiness for the rest of your time, completely unaware that you are the goal, completely unaware that you carry self-sufficiently with you the temple of that which you seek. Your very own body is its very own temple. Every positive definition is from memory and therefore inapplicable. So any positive definition, anytime you say something is this, you're drawing on information in the memory in order to say that, right? Anytime you pull up a particular, it's coming from your memory. That's a fascinating idea. That's a fascinating idea. Think about that for a minute. Every particular that you draw up and point to something to name it comes exclusively from memory. And that memory is your samskaras. That memory is your karma. That memory is your delusion. That memory is the stuff of which your delusion is built. Your wrong sense of I am, your wrong sense of what you are. So every positive definition is from memory and therefore inapplicable. It has something to do with it, because your memory is composed of wrong seeings, of naming and categorizing things relatively without knowing the absolute. And so they're just wild guesses on your part, wild guesses that fit nicely together. So nicely together, it seems real. Questioner, are you not immersed timelessly in an abstraction? That's the academic way of saying, are you crazy? Are you not immersed timelessly in an abstraction? Maharaj, abstraction is mental and verbal and disappears in sleep or swoon. It reappears in time. I am in my own state, Swarupa, timelessly in the now. Past and future are in mind only. I am now. You see how like water off a duck's back. It just doesn't get complicated for him. It's just like Brother Lawrence. I mean, practice in quite a different way, but with the same fruit, the same point, is this constant a discipline of insisting on being in the moment, and in that moment, only two things matter. Am I doing something I shouldn't be doing? I'll stop it. Is there something I should be doing that I'm not doing? I'll do it. And with those two instructions, Brother Lawrence saw God. And so this is very much the same. It's like bringing yourself stubbornly into the now, staying present with Satchit Ananda, and not letting story cloud that way. Not letting your mind tell you that God's not talking to you today because you ate that extra piece of cake yesterday. Not letting your mind tell you that, You're at this point in your spiritual life, and in 3 more years, you're going to be at this point. I don't know anybody that's ever done that. But anyway, that's this notion of being trapped within a timeline. It's only through a constant attention to the moment that we break out of that timeline, because the timeline is your karma. The timeline is your karma. It's your story of cause and effect that bind you. And in this moment, you can be free. You just have to you just have to set it, let go of what does Vivekananda say? Let go of the rope that binds you down. Sannyasin bold, save Om, Tat Sat Om. So it's not that you're entangled, it's that you're holding the rope around your waist. It's not even tied. You're just holding the two ends. You're just holding it together and screaming for help. Someone save me. I'm bound. They're dragging me down. Help me. Mother, oh, mother, where is your mercy? Your mother's just looking at you going, oh, God, why? What have I done to have these devotees? Yes, this is our struggle. So the wonderful news is that it's in your hands. It's in your hand, and you'll let go when you're ready and when you want to. But you don't have to wait until then to laugh. You don't have to wait until then to enjoy the fun of this wonderful, wonderful isness of life, of God, of being. And as a matter of fact, our delusion can sometimes help us laugh even harder, because you can imagine, being this divine self, and what a predicament. What a riddle that I've created out of nothing. It's marvelous. Sienna is Greg's daughter, and she's a marvelous person with the largest imagination I have ever encountered. Just, my goodness, the way she sees the world is amazing. But in Greg's house, half of his kitchen counter, literally half of his available counter space, is jars of potions that Sienna has mixed up. she's got potions to call the butterflies here, and she's got potions to keep the rabbits safe, and she's got potions to just everything. And you go in there, and in her world, she's just got all of this control, right? She can cure anything. She can keep the birds alive. She can control the wind. She's got potions for all of it. And she believes that to an extent. It's quite amazing to be drawn into that world. And of course, I stand there as this 58-year-old curmudgeon. Like, that stinks. That one needs to be thrown out. It's starting to rot. That one, what's in there? That's shredded newspaper. That's not going to cure anything. We look at it, we see the unreality of it. We get all tangled up in that unreality of it. And to what end? To what end? There's a very simple thing. It's this is the mind of the mind. This is, I was going to say, of a child, but we're doing the same kind of imagination. All of the control we think that we have over the world and over our destiny, all of the plans that we think we're engaging in to get us somewhere else, into something new, those are all the potions on the countertop of Mother. those are all of your wrong ideas about what you are and where you're going and what you're doing. And, but you can know that and enjoy the potions at the same time, right? It's not really important whether they're real or not. They're indications. They're indicators of something real and something beautiful. And that awareness is enough to bring you home. So live with that awareness as often as you can bring it to mind. The practice of the presence. There is something beautiful here in this moment as it is. And your relationship with God is to be able to see the moment as beautiful, regardless of the condition of your mind and your mood, regardless of the condition of your body and its shape and its ills. Your relationship with God is what creates your experience of this moment. And if you can remember the nature of God, And if you can remember the presence of God, then the irritable things of this moment disappear. The spooky things go away. And a new light, which makes you free of mood, which makes you free of mind, free of emotion, free of anger, grief, all of those things, becomes yours again. Abstraction is mental and verbal and disappears in sleep or swoon. It reappears in time. I am in my own state. That's a wonderful thing to remember when you're driving down the road, yelling at the person in front of you. Just remember, wait a minute. I am in my own state. I am unaffected by the states of everything else. I am in my own state. Timelessly in the now. Past and future in the mind only. So we immediately let things pass. We don't hold them, right? We don't use them towards certain ends. We are now. And in this now, if it's well known, it's perfect. It's balanced. It's harmonious. It's exactly as it should be. It is the sum total of your experience of love to this day forward. The world too is now, the questioner says. Maharaj, which world? Questioner, the world around us. Maharaj, it is your world that you have in mind, not mine. What do you know of me? Even my talk with you is in your world only. You have no reason to believe that my world is identical with yours. My world is real, true, as it is perceived, while yours appears and disappears according to the state of your mind. Your world is something alien, and you are afraid of it. My world is myself. I am at home. That's overwhelmingly beautiful to me. That it's letting go of all of our assumptions about the minds and worlds of others, letting that go, and looking at this understanding. This is the price of ego, right? That we live in a world that's alien, meaning a world that's separate from us, a world of the other. And immediately, because of that other being unknown, we are afraid. Right? And so we experience life afraid. And that other, quite often, we conjure it together into a thing called God. That this superpower in the sky. And we bring our fear into that relationship, right? Because this other is more powerful. This other is unknown. This other is more intelligent. It's bigger. It's huge. And little old me, what do I do? Start picking flowers and offering it, hoping I don't make it mad, making little vows and constantly trying to propitiate it so that it rains on me when it needs to and dries me off when that's needed. So we exercise this fear, but look at the reality of it. This world is myself. I am at home, right? When you know the nature of this universe is love, and you know that love is the same love that you're sourcing inside toward your divine ideal. When you know that that's the nature of things, and you come to know, I'm at home. I'm in a place where the self, the soul, who is what I am, is always safe. Body may not be safe, the mind may not be safe, but the self is always safe and always at home and always charmed by the moment, regardless of what the moment is interpreted as by the body and mind. To the self, the moment is always a moment of grandeur, a moment of profundity, depth, and beauty. If you are the world, how can you be conscious of it? Is not the subject of consciousness different from its object? Maharaj. Consciousness and the world appear and disappear together. Hence, they are two aspects of the same state. Consciousness and the world appear and disappear together. Yeah, so consciousness reflects or is reflected. I guess consciousness would be the reflection of awareness, maybe. To be conscious is to have awareness reflected. If there's just awareness with no reflection, there's no consciousness. There's just awareness, just isness. Consciousness requires a sense of other, maybe. If you are the world, how can you be conscious of it? Is not the subject of consciousness different from its objects? Consciousness and the world, Maharaj says, appear and disappear together. Hence, they are two aspects of the same state. Questioner, in sleep I am not, and the world continues. Maharaj, how do you know? Questioner, on waking up I come to know. My memory tells me. Maharaj, memory is in the mind. The mind continues to sleep. Questioner, it is partly in abeyance. Maharaj, but its world picture is not affected. As long as the mind is there, your body and your world are there. Your world is mind-made, subjective, enclosed within the mind, fragmentary, temporary, personal, hanging on the thread of memory. Questioner, so is yours? Maharaj, oh no. I live in a world of realities, while yours is of imagination. Your world is personal, private, unshareable, intimately your own. Nobody can enter it, see you as you are, hear you as you hear, feel your emotions or think your thoughts. In your world, you are truly alone, enclosed in your ever-changing dream, which you take for life. My world is an open world, common to all, accessible to all. In my world, there is community, insight, love, real quality. The individual is the total, the totality. In the individual, all are one, and one is all. I'd like to trade. I'd like to trade. So he says, our world is imagination. And we talked about this. It exists all in the mind because we interpret all the information coming in through the senses as coming from outside of ourselves. And so we create a symbol of the outside world in our own mind. And it's imagination. Much of it is imagination. You know, we see that in our relationships a lot. Somebody does something and we think we know why they do it. Even though we have no access to their mind, we project our mind on their mind. And so many of our fights and so many of our arguments and so many of our enemies are created by wrong assumptions about their inner world, about themselves, right? And those wrong assumptions create division and create separation. So our imagined world is our own private world. And it's very clunky. You know, I've shared that in the past, that right now, as I'm speaking to you, I have wonderful thoughts and wonderful images around all of these ideas, a conglomeration of experiences and feelings and investigations, and some of my favorite people appearing in my mind, telling me little tidbits of these truths. But all I can do is, you know, take this gravelly, clunky voice of mine and, you know, pack a few of these marvelous things that exist in my head into these gravelly sounds that I'm going to spit out of my mouth at you and try to convey to you something beautiful or something lovely or something amazing. And yet all I can give to you are these words. And then you have to take these words into your private world and you have to project everything that you think I might have been thinking, everything you think I might have experienced, everything you think I might know about these things. And you have to cobble together some bizarre performance art piece in your mind that, if I was to compare what was in my mind before I put it into words and set that on the counter, and then you take the piece that you built from those same words and put it on the counter next to my piece, my original piece, we would probably just sit there and laugh our heads off for an hour over that, over how deeply we've misunderstood each other. And that would be everything, right? Because we're trying to connect through things we have defined as separate. We've defined our bodies and minds as being individual, and we've given access to this body and mind only to this self, this small embodied self. And so we run around bumping into each other, trying to call that, intimacy, trying to call that brotherhood, trying to call that sisterhood. But in reality, we are the dreamer, and we are all inside that one mind. And our nature is love, and we are not separated. The self that we are, that we know ourselves to be in the state of enlightenment, is shared by all. And we know the nature of all, right? And we see that light coming out the front of their personality. We know exactly what happened to that light, because that light is what is real, and that light is what we are. And so by knowing that initial light of love as it goes in the back of the personality, when it comes out the front of the personality, we know every condition of the mind in between. That's why the saints can look at you and know your whole story, because they know themselves. They know what they look like back here before they go through that tunnel of delusion called your mind. And they see the light coming out the front has purple spots in it, and it's green and it's orange and it flickers. And so from that, they know the original light, what it is. They can determine what is the condition of your mind that has done that to this unified light that goes in the back and comes out the front as the multiplicity. You see, it's this knowing. So to live in that world of a knowledge that you are everyone, not that you go around practicing it anymore, you have a knowledge of it. You have a knowledge and isness to it. You've tasted the milk. And so you know what is real, and you can see it in everything, and you cannot ever unsee it in everything. And suddenly your world is a world of oneness, a world of safety and beauty, a world of love, a world free of danger. Not because nothing can happen to the body, but because it doesn't matter what happens to the body. It was a dream body. Your real self is safe and free and pure and always. Is your world full of things and people, as is mine? No, it is full of myself. But do you see and hear as we do? Yes, I appear to hear and see and talk and act, but to me it just happens. As to you, digestion or perspiration happens. The body-mind machine looks after it, but leaves me out of it. Just as you do not need to worry about growing hair, so I need not worry about words and actions. They just happen, and they leave me unconcerned, for in my world, nothing ever goes wrong. What a fool to try and put words to this. I mean, to try and describe this. What can we say here? Look at this, how beautiful this is. I appear to hear and see and talk and act. So yes, you have the appearance, and because in ego self, everything is calculated out, everything is planned, everything is calculated, So it loses this wonder, it loses this freedom, because we think that everything is because we're making it that way. But he he says, yes, when you look at me, you will think that I had to think about all these words, that I had to study all these things that I know. That's what you're going to project. And so I appear to you to be just like you, he's saying. Yes, I appear to you to be just like you. He says, but you see, the difference is that I know that I'm not the body and mind. This body and mind, this body mind is a wheel rolling down the hill. It doesn't need me. I don't even have to be in it at all. It's samskara. It's reaction to conditions. And it's just doing it. I can see that it's just doing that. I can see that I'm not necessary to it, he says. And so I can let it happen because I know in my world, nothing goes wrong because the doer in my world is the divine. And in the divine, there is all knowing. Everything is aware. And so nothing can be done partially, improperly, or wrongly. The body, mind, machine looks after everything, just like the body sweats when it needs to, and your hair grows, it gets thinner, but it's still growing. And so you don't have to worry about that, right? Just like we talk about getting a tan, you don't have to sit there and direct the melatonin around your body. It just happens. It happens because you are not the doer. It happens because it is just divine. Just as you do not need to worry about growing hair, so I need not worry about words and actions. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do. I don't have to worry about any of those things because they are. They just happen and they leave me unconcerned. For in my world, nothing ever goes wrong. Right? And that's all from changing identity. Changing identity from a body in which many things can go wrong. Changing your identity from a mind in which many things can go wrong, to your identity with an unchanging self behind both of those things, where nothing can go wrong, because nothing can change, nothing can harm, nothing is actually done. It's just a constant stream of ever-changing, unrepeating manifestation of perfection, of love and wisdom. All right, so that's the section 7 on the mind. It's 10:02. And highlight that. And I'm turning off just one moment. One moment. Let me get in here and stop the recording.